Hey, don't you remember? I spent hundreds of hours analyzing art, and as amazing as so much of it is, no movie inspired me to change as much as this one did over the last few years. See, so much of our effort is spent on trying to find ways to please others instead of trying to actually understand what someone else is going through. True love doesn't come from a wondrous feeling, but instead how willing you are to deeply understand another person. That is the lesson that we learn from the movie Your Name, a Ghibli-esque romantic anime centered around a boy and a girl who switch places and go into one another's lives. It's hard to get comfortable with the idea of being alone. It's even harder to get comfortable with the idea of not being alone and truly showing yourself to another person. Along with coming to understand what makes love, we'll also explore how to find true love, and also how to have the courage to be able to face it, and most of all, how to use your free will to change your fate. Welcome, everybody. We are very excited to talk today about a movie that we were watching with one another called Your Name. It's one of our favorites, so one of my favorites, I mean, and now it's definitely, I've decided they're favorites too.
Yeah, it's at least in my top 100 probably.
Actually, that's impressive considering how stringent your top 100 these days. Like, it's hard, like, if you don't know, it's impossible to get Levi not to have a complaint about something, which is an admirable thing.
I've kind of taken up the role of being like the contrarian, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
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 Personally, I don't appreciate you assuming my favorite movie. I will say it. You were right this time, so maybe you're onto something.
You can learn to have a more fulfilling life from something like this, from a piece of art like this, especially when it comes to something that is so delicate as a romantic relationship. So delicate and so easily can cause more stress than you've ever had in your life, and can easily feel like a waste of time because it hurts so bad. But this movie explains it better than I think most any other that I've ever seen. And that is what you will get out of understanding it, and which is what we're going to try to do here today. This also, by the way, is Robbie. He is here as to help us explore what we can get out of this awesome piece of art called Your Name. And not specifically Your Name, but a movie called Your Name, in case that was confusing, which you've probably seen it. Robbie, tell me, what is your feeling about art in general? What is it that your experience is, and art, just a little bit of your story.
Yeah. Well, as far as qualifications, I have few, but are we not all qualified in art in some capacity? I grew a love first for reading as a child. I think that's, and watching movies. I learned to be critical very young. I can relate to Levi in saying that I am somewhat the contrarian, typically. Love to play devil's advocate.
Yeah.
But I think that I would say, I don't know, I grew a love for poetry in 11th grade honors English. I really appreciate my teacher. And since then I have taken writing 101, or 105, 150. Writing 150 is what they call it at BYU, but I've taken introductory writing 3 separate times by happenstance. I've passed wonderfully every time, but there's just been credit transfer things. So I love rhetoric. I love understanding the reasons why things are said, and the reasons, but more I love understanding how things are said.
if there's something I could say about Robbie specifically, it's you are so good at putting things together, which if you haven't seen Your Name, that is essential for the story. So I guess we're going to start with our regular go over the
Kind of overview.
overview. Yes, thank you. And then what we thought of it just really quickly, and then get on to the meat. So, yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of turned into my job. I don't know if we ever like established that, but it's kind of my thing now.
It works.
So the basic premise of Your Name is two people, teenagers, a boy and a girl, who start kind of swapping places. The girl will wake up in the boy's body and just like have a day living his life, and vice versa. And at first, you know, they're really confused. They don't know what's going on. They don't even really like remember that it's happening. They'll wake up and not realize that they just swapped places, and so they're just kind of figuring it out from what people are saying to them about like what they did when they weren't in their own body, I guess. And similar to Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, it's sort of the development of their relationship and the love story as they are going through the switch. But it's interesting because unlike in that story, they're not actually interacting. Their experiences with each other are exclusively based on like what kind of messages they leave behind for each other, what other people are saying to them, what they're experiencing and what they're learning about each other through just living each other's lives and not directly interacting, which I think is a really cool concept.
Yeah. It does a very good job at helping you see just how easily somebody can connect with another person and the kinds of things that really matter to make a connection. It's a phenomenal story. Let's talk about it. Do you think this movie does what it's trying to accomplish?
I would say yes. And I was actually thinking as you were talking, this movie feels to me like one of those that is not necessarily like trying to get one specific thing across. It feels like it's a movie that like was created with an artistic vision in mind, but doesn't necessarily care which specific thing that we get out of it.
Yeah,
if that makes sense. I don't know if I articulated that well.
I feel like it did. I see what you're saying. Kind of like when he made it, he was just like creating art.
Yeah, and it feels like there are multiple things that can be taken out of it, and none of them necessarily feel right or wrong.
Yeah, but it is still, even though he was creating art, it's still oriented towards improvement, but it is general. Yeah.
Yes, I do think that it is successful. Okay. I've said before, I do have like a couple of problems with the development of the love story, but nothing huge. I think that it tells that well. I think that it conveys the feelings and the emotions that it was trying to very well. And I will get into that more when we get more into the nitty gritty of the story, but I love the way that it conveys the feeling of like longing for something that you can't even explain. That's something that it explores a lot through them like forgetting each other as like they swap back to their normal lives. There's still this like sense of like missing something, even though they don't know what they're missing. And that's something that, even though I, as far as I know, have never just like magically swapped places with somebody overnight, that is a feeling that I feel like I can relate to. Like,
as far as you know.
Yeah, maybe.
As far as I know, I guess I can't say for sure.
Maybe
but
you just don't remember.
Yeah. Maybe it happens to everybody, and this was the creator's way of trying to open our eyes to the fact, like, hey, you're all swapping places overnight, just so you know.
And we're over here trying to get all technical.
Yeah, we're just like looking at like the symbolism. It's not a symbol. It's a
literal story.
It's just actually happening.
How about you, Robbie?
I think I would agree. I think that it accomplishes what it sets out to do. And that maybe it doesn't quite know what it sets out to do. But it does know it's not purposeless, it's just purpose ambiguous. I think for me it's somewhat the epitome of a love story. I think it does what all love stories should, in that it's healthy and it knows what it feels like to be in love. Um, and I think it explores that very successfully.
Yeah, so just a little backstory. We've begun watching a movie with a club that we created every month, and this was the one I chose out for it. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. I remember watching it when I think I just became single after having my first girlfriend in high school, and I watched it, and it stuck with me for a long time. Um, so this movie is very meaningful to me. On Letterboxd, I gave it 5 stars. Um, I I think it explores love in a spiritually deep way that I think I need and a lot of people need, and I appreciate that a lot for it. So it is one of my favorite movies. Robbie, just so that you are aware, we sometimes rate things on a scale of 1 to 11.
Personally, I'm more partial of the 1 to 12 scale, 12 being the nearest highly composite number, of which fractional representation is most easily applicable, but I will adapt.
Spoken as somebody who knows things about math.
that is.
Hey, don't you know this is a feelings thing?
Yeah,
Those numbers out of here.
numbers convey feelings. You just have to look at the
Like 1 to 11.
Exactly. Okay, I would probably rate it on a scale of 1 to 11. About a 9.3.
I like it. 9.3 out of 11.
I'd probably do 9.5, honestly.
This is gonna be crazy.
Maybe 9.6 if I'm like really feeling it, you know.
Yeah, 9.6.
Maybe.
That's the highest you've ever rated something.
Is it?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh. I'm not consistent.
I mean, we've only rated like what, 4 things, so yeah, it's not a lot of things. But on the scale, I would say for me this is a 10.5.
Nice.
The extra booby scene, it ruins it for me.
That's what brings it down from
Well, see, that's what brought it up from 9 for me.
Ah! That's good. I'm surprised that out of all of us, you rated it the lowest. Not like just because of the way that you talked about it, but that just shows there's other things that you love a lot. If you can love something this much and it being a 9.5.
Yeah. I think.
Which I'm saying 9.5 like it's low.
I said
or 9.3. Yeah,
9.3 is fairly high on the scale. Like, it was a delectable piece of media. But I just think, I don't know, you've spoken to me about a transformation in yourself from this movie, and examining myself. There was, I think art transforms in all capacities, some for the better or for the worse, but it did not transform me as much as it transformed your, at least, depiction to me.
Just a warning, we're gonna get into spoilers from here on out. This is a movie where I feel like morally obligated to tell you that if you haven't seen it, you should stop watching. Even if you never intend to watch this movie, please don't listen to this podcast if you haven't seen it. It's one of those things where if by chance you end up watching it, you don't want to know the spoilers for it. There's just too many moments that are, I don't know, too important, at least in my experience, where I would say, stop watching. This is your warning. Here's a little story for you. When I watched this movie, first, I couldn't stop thinking about it for weeks. And not only could I not stop thinking about it, I could not stop feeling about it. I just remember feeling like I wanted so badly to know where the story ended. I wanted to know so badly, not because it has an ambiguous ending. It's very clear the direction that the story is going, but I wanted to see it. I wanted to be in it because something about it was so enticing to me. But when I did watch it again just recently, I felt this burning feeling return that I had before. And this warmth in my chest, and it's almost one of those things where it's like, if I feel this, okay, I know I'm on the right track to understand what's going on here. And I felt that feeling return, and I make a joke that I am really good at telling which girls are attractive and not, and that's the extent of my dating knowledge. Because uh, uh, watching this, by the end of it, I wanted to have a real connection with people. And instead of looking at girls on the street and being like, that girl's cute, and I think that girl's cute, and it would be fun if someday I had a girl that was that cute. I was able to take a step back and say, wait a minute, that's not the point. The point is that real connection. In this story, one of the main overarching themes is because this boy and girl are switching places, they're really getting to know each other. And again, we're assuming that you've seen it before from this point on. That is, I think, a very good sandbox to start in. A boy and a girl who really get to understand each other on another level. And I think that viewing what we talk about here through that lens will be helpful. And so as we start, I guess I just wanted to ask, what are your favorite moments from this movie that stick out to you?
I really like the scene at like the edge of the crater or whatever when they sort of meet up at twilight for a lot of reasons. I think it's very like beautifully shot and directed, I guess. Just in general, this is a beautiful movie. The animation and the score and just like the way it's all put together, it's just, I don't know, it just has that feeling of like you're just experiencing art. And there's just like an inherent joy for me that comes from that. And I felt that very much in this scene. There's a lot of really cool artistic direction that was taken. I love the way like there's like the line of light from the setting sun and like how that kind of shows them like crossing over into each other's worlds or however you want to look at it. But one of my favorite things about that, and we rewatched some of these scenes just to get it fresh in our heads before we started recording, and it stuck out to me more this time than I think it did the first time. That's the first time they interact with each other directly.
Yeah, right.
Like that's the first time that they've actually met, and it feels like you realize it as you're watching, but it feels surprising because it feels like they already know each other just because of like the way that they've interacted and like come to know who each other are despite never having actually directly spoken. And it's just like, it's just cool to me.
Yeah,
it's so, I love seeing like how it becomes so evident to me in that scene how much of a connection they've already formed without having ever met.
Yeah.
And I think that's really cool.
And I think it's worthwhile to explore what it was that made these two people connect. Like, I mean, I remember when I was in my teenage years watching that scene and Mitsuha comes and she's like so happy to see him, and I remember it's like the romantic, like she puts her hands on his chest and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so lonely. But it's showing like that real connection that the two of them are having, that I it's natural and it works too.
Yeah, and I like it's like kind of awkward too, and I like that. Like it feels a lot more real and in a weird way more intimate because like it is for them also a moment of like, oh, we've actually never really interacted, and like there's like they're a little bit awkward and weird around each other, but you can still tell that like that doesn't really matter to either of them, and it doesn't really matter to the viewer either because you can tell that there is still
they really know each other and love each other.
I think to add on to that, like they know each other exclusively through this process of switching places, but like it's because they've lived each other's lives, like they understand, and they had to figure out, okay, which people are important to this person,
right?
What experiences, what kind of social situations are important. Like for Mitsuha, she goes to Taki's life and she's exploring this romance that she kind of creates and then almost exclusively develops, but also the relationship between his friends and his co-workers that are kind of a part of that. And so I wonder, like, how much of love is the exploration of another person's world.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's a beautiful message that, you know, they learn about each other through this experience of being in their life.
Walking in each other's shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I it's an experience that is very possible without switching places, but it's also one that is very remiss in, is that the right word? Yeah, remiss. It's very remiss in today's culture. Like, how often when you are, you know, planning a date with someone, for example, are you actually thinking about, will I truly do something where I can get to know them? Or when you're having conversations with someone, like, there's somebody I was talking to, and whenever we would talk, we would just ask a lot of questions, but they got us nowhere. Like, really, they got us nowhere, and they were still like, they were personal-ish questions, like about, like, yeah, the kind of music that you like, and so what's
Stupid
this things, yeah, but it's like, by the end of it, truly, we didn't know each other. And that is what made the difference in with Mitsuha and Taki.
Well, I would say, I would maybe amend your statement. They got to know each other, but they didn't get to know each other. They got to know this other aspect of them that is like them without themselves, you know?
They got to know the other one's true experience. Like, perhaps they didn't get to know what maybe they thought about everything, although they did get some when they were, leaving messages back and forth with each other. But what they did get was an actual understanding of the things that really matter in their lives, Like, by the time that they meet, Taki sees all of the interactions that Mitsuha had with her father growing up. And it's those sorts of things that, made it so that Taki loved her enough to work freaking hard for her, you know? And that's just cool.
That's another thing that I appreciate about this story. It's very easy in like media romances for it to just have like a love at first sight kind of vibe. That's why I don't really like the romantic aspect of like Romeo and Juliet or West Side Story. And I don't necessarily think that's supposed to be the focus of those stories. People say it is, but I don't think it is.
Oh yeah.
But what I appreciate about this love story is it feels like they earned it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the reason I buy that they developed this romantic connection is because of the effort that they both put forth in just trying to like live each other's lives. But then when conflict does start arising and they're trying to figure everything out and trying to get to each other, essentially, they both put in so much effort to try to reach the other person, and it makes it more believable for me because it doesn't. It's similar to what we were talking about when we were talking about Yumi the Nightmare Painter, of like, not necessarily these two people were like destined for each other, although there are themes in the movie that imply that, right? But you get the sense that like they were able to make it work because of the effort that they both put forth, and that was what developed their romance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That was one of my initial complaints with the movie. As I watched it, like I said immediately afterwards, like, I'm not sure I really buy that. That I felt like, okay, like the universe just kind of decided that they were gonna be together, and then they were, and it was like, I think for me though, the explanation of the magic system, which is a very soft magic system, and maybe we can spend some time explaining that. But that kind of helped me understand, okay, like, no, they weren't destined for each other. It's this kind of like, there was a very strong opportunity, but it left space for their own agency to be able to work towards it. And I think that love, as explained in this work, is a mix of agency and destiny. And I think that's really sweet and profound.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Because I will say that you know, people like the Riz factor. How much Riz do you have? Can you like actually pull? What girls can you pull? And it kind of makes me feel like funny about this idea of dating where it's like, yep, gonna ask 50 girls on dates, and after I've asked all 50 girls on dates, then we're gonna like make out with like half of them maybe, and then like after that, Riz will get me through to find the real girl that's gonna match for me. And I've been doing this is very anecdotal, so don't take this necessarily as like as hard and fast science, but I've been asking around, and all of my friends that are getting married, I say, "How did you two meet?" And the story is never, "Well, of my dating pool, she was the best one." Dating stories sound more um like after talking for a while he did this and that changed everything, you know. Or it doesn't. Or one of my favorites is my friend, he is getting married coming up in just a couple months, and he was talking about, you know, him and his wife, or not wife, fiance, they're not married yet, but he was saying that it was her cousin that, or something like that, that he was sitting next to at some sort of speech, and then he was like, "Hey, do you like motorcycles?" And he was like, "Yeah, I ride motorcycles all the time." He's like, "Okay, okay." It was that from that point of he liked motorcycles, she liked motorcycles, they were able to hang out and start doing it. It had nothing to do with like the Riz factor. It had everything to do with the fact that they were friends. They were building something, and I think
Even on top of that, that they happened to sit next to each other.
yes, and they happened to have a mutual friend that knew they both liked motorcycles, and it is more, it's it is kind of that fate sort of thing. Yeah.
Do I have permission to divert from the romantic focus of this movie for just a second?
Sure.
Because there is another aspect of this story that stood out to me that is kind of separate from the rest of that I do want to talk about at least a little bit. Something that it doesn't come up super often in stories, but I always think it's really cool and interesting is the idea of like defying fate. And usually for that to like really work out, there has to be something weird going on with time. A good example of this, and this will come up on the podcast at some point, I guarantee you. One of my favorite video games of all time is Xenoblade Chronicles. And a big part of that story is that the protagonist is getting these visions of the future. And initially he kind of just like sees it as like, okay, this is what's going to happen. But as the story progresses, he starts like to realize, no, I'm not going to accept this. I have the opportunity to change this if this isn't what I want. And so it plays a lot with the idea of like agency and making choices, and not letting like the universe or whatever decide your fate. And I felt a little bit of that when I was watching this movie, because there's this idea of like there's this devastating tragedy where all these people die, and it happened in the past. Like when in Taki's perspective, this has already happened.
That is such a good point.
And he
yes.
still refuses to accept it.
So what Levi's referring to is the part of the movie where Taki goes to find this girl because he's starting to forget her, and they start not switching places anymore. So they stop switching places, and he goes to find her, and finds out that the meteor has hit the town, and everybody, like a lot of people that lived there died.
Maybe we should rewatch that part because I'm not remembering anything.
I think it was just that kind of internal pull.
Yeah.
He's been feeling this whole time that he's like he can't sit with the fact that she died like a long time ago. Like that just is not like something is wrong with that, and he can't just sit with that. He has to investigate further.
Yeah.
And so he goes on these glimpses of memories that he's seen and tries to find something else out.
Yeah. And I think that this is a really great segue to kind of what you're talking about with the magic system. It's almost more of a fate system. So the opening shot of the movie is, if you haven't seen it in a while, Taki's in Mitsuha's body having this dream, and he remembers Mitsuha, who travels to Tokyo to give him the braided cord. Now, the braided cord, there's a lot that gets into the braided cord, and we're probably going to talk about a lot of it. But she gives it to him, and he wakes up and basically saying, it was because of the braided cord that you are now here. Like, that was the initiation of fate. Which, first of all, movie's called Your Name. So when she gives him the braided cord and says her name, obviously that's significant for some reason, but it ties them together. And there's a lot of thematic and religious stuff when it comes to like even relating to things like marriage and stuff like that, like taking someone's name or giving your name, that sort of thing. It's very closely tied to the connection of fate. There is also, and this is the last thing I'm going to say before we start talking more about exploring more about fate, there's an ancient myth that's pretty clear that this movie is alluding to, where people who are meant to get married to each other have a red string that attaches them. The twist in this movie is that the red string was actually given, and it wasn't initially there. Mitsuha actively gave it to Taki. So, what is it that you like about fate?
Something that I like is how ambiguous the movie is about a lot of it. And I like how much of it is given to their agency.
Yeah.
Like, regardless of whether or not there is some kind of external force that is like pulling the strings, it's their choices that ultimately are like changing their fates and like linking their fates. Again, the reason that, depending on how you look at it, the reason that they're connected in the first place is because Mitsuha went and sought him out and like gave her ribbon to him. And I like that because, and again, maybe this is just my own personal taste, but I like stories of, influencing your own fate, so to speak, and using your own choices and your own powers, whatever is within your ability to do, to influence your fate or destiny or future, or however you want to look at it. And I like that you see that a lot of this is in their own power, regardless of how it got there. Like, they're making decisions that are making these things happen.
No. Robbie, I want to hear from you too.
What is it that I like about fate? There's that one scene where they're hiking. Taki in Mitsuha's body is hiking up the mountain, and there's this like cut scene to Taki in Mitsuha's body is hiking up the mountain with her grandmother and her little sister.
Yeah.
And they're gonna go perform this like spiritual ritual in the Shinto faith that they are practicing. Mitsuha is a priestess in training for the shrine.
And also what the ritual entails is she has to chew up rice and spit it out to make sake, which is the type of alcohol that is made from a piece of her, and that's meant to be symbolic of this is a piece of Mitsuha that's now going up the mountain. And keep going.
And so for me, what I think is interesting about fate is that in that cutscene, it talks about how that these woven cords that they make as this ritual, which is the braid that she has that she then gives to Taki at the beginning and the end of the movie, or almost end. It is a union. It is fate is comforting in this movie because it is.
That's a really good point.
This connection, right? This like
comforting, just because they could choose, because they were fated to be with each other.
Yeah,
they had the option to choose that.
Well, like, to use the analogy of the movie, they have this cord circle thing where they braid these cords together in their shrine, and they move each thread of this cord that is this one whole cord, and they move them across each other, and they intertwine to create something that is stronger as a whole, which is why you braid cords. That's what I mean when I say it's comforting in the union, that there is this connection that makes them stronger, that is
You're saying
through this fate.
that the fact that the two of them are coming together through fate, becoming a stronger person, that the fact that they are stronger together than they were apart, that is actually one of the biggest things that I like about the movie. And that's, if we're talking about the aspect of the movie that I like the most, which I haven't gotten into, and I'll save for later. And I didn't like what you're saying about the cord, because in the movie it does mention that, you know, cords, it says that the cord is symbolic of love and of time and union, because things get wound up, if they get unwound, and then you have to put them back together again. And it says that, which is so interesting. It's a twist of fate, on the idea of fate, where you view it as, instead of being something that's set, as something that you build. And the strength that they had from one another is really, it's a powerful thing.
So something that you said right there that I want to rehash, to maybe try and explain more clearly, is you said love, time, and fate are all kind of the same thing as described in this movie.
Oh, union was the...
Oh, yeah, love, time, and union. Yeah, not fate. Love, time, and union. And so I was like, originally, like, hearing that, I was like, what are you talking about, movie? Like, how are those things at all synonymous, you know, or at least connected? Like, love and union I can get, and maybe...
Well, love wasn't even in the movie. I added that one.
Oh, yeah, you did.
Yeah. So, but the one that's confusing is time
and union. Like,
yeah.
Those things are equated in the movie, where, like, I don't know that there's an obvious reason to equate them, except that is, by definition, fate. The correlation of time and union.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's cool. And that I think this, you know, kind of leads to what I think is the coolest part about the movie is, you know, it is still the hero's journey, but whose journey is it? And it's both of theirs, but it's different for each person. I love the way that it portrays the different roles between them. Because in the movie, Taki, he realizes that his connection is fading. He could have done nothing. And what would have happened if he done nothing? Mitsuha would stay dead, and that would be the end. He could have done nothing. But instead, he does something. He works his tail off to figure out what it was his memories were telling him to do, which is so relatable. There's so many times where it's like, I just feel like I have to do something. I don't know why. And I can either choose to have the courage to go into it, or to not participate. But he chooses to participate. He keeps going. And when he keeps going, he is given the opportunity to connect with what Mitsuha brought as a sacrifice to the spirit world. She, you know, has the kuchikamazake, which is the rice that she chewed up and spat out again. And she brought it up to that altar with her grandma at the end of the mountain climbing scene we were talking about earlier. And when she leaves it there, she says, well, Taki is living this scene through Mitsuha's eyes. Oh, I just realized something about how the movie works. That's cool. And he leaves the kuchikamazake there, and it's supposed to be a symbol of sacrificing a piece of yourself. In a way, to me, Taki, when he later goes up and drinks the same kuchikamazake, it's a symbol of him seeing the true parts of Mitsuha. Which, you know, not only that, but they call it the spirit world when they enter into the realm where she leaves that piece of her. So he is literally having to go into the underworld, which, by the way, courage, right? He has to go into the underworld to really understand who this person is. And when he does it, he is given one last chance to save her life, which that's so cool. Like, that makes me want to be like a good man so bad. Like, it just makes me like really want to like do what it takes to understand somebody and to be humble enough to try and work things out in a way where we're both left stronger. Where Mitsuha now does have the second chance that she needs to, another big theme, face up to her dad, you know? Is there anything about the final section before, you know, the 5 years later part at the end that you all liked that you want to talk about? Because if not, I have one.
I don't know if I have anything like super specific. Again, it's just like beautifully directed. I like how the comment is just like absolutely beautiful, and like
Yeah.
you can't help but acknowledge that while also being like stressed and seeing it as a sense of impending doom. I think that's cool. I like that you don't immediately know if they were successful or not when you do get the kind of time skip. I mean, I assumed because I've seen movies before and I could predict about how that was going to end, but you know, like objectively, you don't know for sure. It leaves it a little bit ambiguous, and you just kind of figure it out as you watch Taki going through life, you know, these 5 years later, and I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
Outside of that, I don't know if I have a whole lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I would second that, but like, I liked how he wrote "I love you,"
Yeah.
and that's like the first time that he's declared his love for her, because it's the first time that he's met her, but he's met these other parts of her, and that is his love. And he doesn't write his name, which is in the moment frustrating, but I think it's indicative of, I don't know. Yeah.
I think it's also what really matters.
Right.
That is my favorite part of the movie. I remember, you know, back in that junior year, I was watching it with my sisters. When I first saw that, it just hit me like, can you imagine, like, the power and meaning that that has? And this is what I think is neat, is that it's a story where you really understand that truly they love each other. And you feel it in that moment where that's the thing he chose to write. And she says, this doesn't help. I don't know if I believe her that it didn't help, because I think that sometimes it's knowing that you really have that somebody who loves you that gives you the strength to keep going, even when she didn't know his name, which is something that they do in Yumi too, where it's the love that she had, even though she didn't remember having it, that gave her the strength to do what she needs to do in the end, which is so cool. It's so cool. And I think that is really what makes the difference. We spend so much time just messing around and not actually progressing to having a real connection with somebody else, because it's scary. And I think, you know, going into what you're talking about and the ending scene, I remember when we were talking about it the other day, you said that the ending scene where Taki and Mitsuha are both wondering where to go, or why their life feels so empty, and maybe they need somebody but they can't tell who. You said, like, I liked that because I feel it, you know, I feel like that sometimes. And that is, I think, the state of mind that we have to be in some ways, is really searching for a true meaningful connection. Does that mean that it's gonna just fall into your lap and you just have to wait for it? Like, no. If anything, this movie proves that it takes a lot of work.
Yeah, that's something I kind of wanted to like. Dude, what would you say to somebody who has found love, is married, or in a long-term committed relationship, and feels like maybe that magic has gone away? What do you think the movie speaks to the pursuit of that love? Because in a movie like this, where you have this like, okay, well, we were fated to be together, and like, we had like this very connecting moment, and like it was like really strong, and then to say, well, what keeps that going, like, what do you think?
If you ask me, that's why I think this movie is so important, is the thing that drew them together was, in the end, the fact that they really cared about one another. And a lot of relationships, I heard a quote once from a lady I really respect that talks about how to have meaningful relationships, that sometimes we get into relationships and we really want this person to care about us, but we don't know how to express it. We don't know how to be open with them in a way where you are opening your heart to them. And the thing about these two is, because they felt it, they couldn't go back. They needed to find it again. They needed to find that pure connection. And they would search their entire life for it. And once they found it, it is the fact that they understand, in order to have a real relationship with real love, it takes truly understanding somebody and truly loving them for it. That's what I would say, is if you feel that you have a relationship that you're committed to and you just don't feel the magic anymore, have you considered that perhaps you don't understand who you're with anymore? And I think that is what Your Name is about two people who are willing to give themselves to one another because of their experience.
Yeah, I mean, similar. I feel like it goes back to what I was saying before about effort. There's effort to develop this romance, and although we don't really see it in this movie, we can infer and understand that there is effort to maintain it as well, right? It's a continuing process, and a lot of people, I feel like, seem to have this kind of fairy tale view of, and not even just romantic relationships, just any relationship in general, of this sort of like instant connection. Like, maybe you put forth a little bit of effort to get to that connection, but once you've got it, it's there. But I think it's a continuous process that needs to be refreshed, so to speak. And both parties need to be working to continue to understand each other and continue to love each other and continue to kind of work and fight for each other, like what you see in this movie.
They do forget in this movie, right? Like, they do forget what it was like to be in love. Like, he doesn't remember, and then like but they still always had that longing in them for that.
Yeah.
And so, like, do you have that longing still inside of you?
Do you still have the courage to want it? And that's the thing, is, again, the courage. I'll ring the bell for it. If are you willing to do what it takes to find it, or have you given up? Are you too scared to because what you might find out about yourself or about someone else? That's the real question. That's the love advice from three single guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I think it's good advice. We all have to look. I did view it that way, of there being kind of like a divine figure that has been guiding them through this, and that's why they were together. But obviously it doesn't say anything about that. I don't think it needs to.
Yeah, I like that it's open-ended.
Mm-hmm.
I think that interpretation of like the divine force or whatever is trying to prevent this catastrophe, and it utilizes this vessel of love, is shockingly hopeful.
Yeah,
Like,
you don't get a lot of that today.
yeah,
Not that it's not possible, but people don't view love that way.
they don't view love as this force to bring good.
Yeah.
I mean, they do, like, obviously, like, but like I think love is most often viewed in like an individual lens in today's world, where it's like, how can I self-actualize my ability? How can I find, happiness in my relationships and be able to become the best version of myself?
But it's a union. It's a thing where it's very tied together. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that, like, I think the hope for me is in that there is broken things in the world. There's this tragedy that happens. There's this, all of these terrible experiences. And I think a theme of the movie is that love is a force in which we overcome those.
Love done correctly.
Yes.
Well, and that's the thing. If it's incorrect, you're losing love. By the time you're hating each other because of the things that they forgot to take out the trash, you're not loving each other anymore. Well, thank you, and we appreciate that your willingness to get this far, and I hope that you have success in your adventure, and take courage, and we'll see you all around.
See ya.